Once upon a time, in a quaint little village nestled among rolling hills and sparkling rivers, there lived a curious and clever man named Joseph Nicephore Niepce. Joseph was known throughout the village as an inventor with a heart full of wonder and a mind that never stopped dreaming. He was always tinkering in his workshop, a cozy little place filled with the smells of wood, metal, and the occasional puff of smoke from his experiments. One crisp morning, as the sun's golden rays poured through the windows, Joseph sat at his workbench, staring at a piece of paper in front of him. "There must be a way," he muttered to himself, "to capture the beauty of the world as it is, so it can be shared with others." You see, Joseph had long been fascinated by the idea of preserving images, not just with paint and brushes, but with light itself. As the days passed, Joseph began to spend more and more time in his workshop, working on a secret project. His idea was to create something that could capture the light of the sun and use it to draw pictures that would last forever. He called it heliography, which meant writing with the sun. But this was no easy task. Joseph tried many different ideas. He used sheets of glass and coated them with all sorts of mixtures, silver, bitumen, and other curious substances. Each time, he would place the glass outside, hoping that the sun would work its magic. But the results were always disappointing. The images were faint, blurry, or would disappear altogether after a short time. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the village, Joseph's son Isidore came into the workshop. "Father," he said softly, "you've been working so hard. Why don't you take a rest? Perhaps a new idea will come to you in the morning." Joseph smiled at his son, his tired eyes filled with love. "Thank you, Isidore, but I feel that I'm so close. I can't stop now. I just need to find the right combination." Isidore looked at his father with admiration and concern. He knew how determined Joseph was, but he also knew that sometimes a good night's sleep was just as important as hard work. The next morning, after a long night of thinking and dreaming, Joseph awoke with a new idea. He hurried to his workshop, calling out to Isidore, "I've got it! I think I know what to do." Isidore rushed after him, eager to see what his father had in mind. Joseph quickly began preparing a new mixture, this time using a special type of bitumen called bitumen of Judea, which he had heard about from an old friend. He carefully coated a metal plate with the bitumen and placed it in a small box with a hole in one side, which he called a camera obscura. With great excitement, Joseph set the box on the windowsill, pointing it towards the courtyard outside. "Now we wait," he said, trying to hide the tremble in his voice. The father and son sat together, watching as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Hours passed, and finally Joseph decided it was time. He carefully took the plate out of the box and rushed to a basin filled with lavender oil, where he gently washed the plate. Isidore held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. As Joseph washed away the bitumen that hadn't been hardened by the sunlight, an image began to appear, a faint but unmistakable picture of the courtyard, with its trees, bushes, and even the distant roof of a barn. "We did it!" Joseph exclaimed, his voice filled with joy. "Isidore, look, we've captured the light." Isidore's eyes widened in amazement. "It's like magic, Father. But how do we make it clearer, and how do we make sure it stays forever?" Joseph nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Yes, it's not perfect yet, but it's a start. We'll need to refine the process, make the image sharper and more lasting. But this is the beginning of something wonderful." And so, with renewed energy, Joseph and Isidore continued their work, determined to improve their invention and share the beauty of their discovery with the world. Joseph and Isidore worked tirelessly in their little workshop, day after day, trying to perfect the invention that had begun to take shape. The villagers had started to hear whispers about the sun pictures that Joseph was creating, and they were curious but also puzzled. How could someone possibly capture the world in such a way? But Joseph and Isidore knew they still had much work to do. The images they had captured so far were faint and difficult to see. They would fade over time, And Joseph knew that if this new art form was to last, it needed to be stronger and clearer. One rainy afternoon, as the clouds hung low over the village, Joseph sat at his workbench, deep in thought. The bitumen had worked, but it wasn't enough. He needed something that could hold on to the image more firmly. As he pondered, he remembered a conversation he had once had with a chemist who spoke of the power of silver. Silver, when exposed to light, could change in ways that fascinated Joseph. "Isidore," Joseph called, his voice echoing through the workshop. "I think we must try something new. We need to find a way to use silver to capture the light." Isidore, who had been busy preparing the plates for another attempt, looked up with interest. "Silver, father? But how will that work?" Joseph explained his idea. "If we coat a plate with a solution of silver salts and then expose it to light, the silver might react in such a way that it captures the image more clearly. It's just a theory, but I believe it's worth trying." Excited by the new direction, father and son began experimenting once more. They created a mixture of silver salts and coated a new plate with it. This time, they placed the plate inside the camera obscura and pointed it towards the courtyard, just as before. But Joseph was nervous. Silver was precious, and this was a risky experiment. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, they removed the plate and held their breath. Joseph carefully began to develop the image, this time using a bath of mercury vapors, another idea he had recently read about. Slowly, as the silver reacted with the light and the mercury, an image began to appear. It was sharper, clearer, and more detailed than anything they had seen before. The trees in the courtyard seemed to leap off the plate, the leaves almost shimmering in the light. It's beautiful," Isidore whispered in awe, his eyes wide with wonder. Joseph smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "We've done it, Isidore. This is more than I ever dreamed possible. We've captured the light itself and turned it into something that will last forever." The news of their success quickly spread throughout the village and beyond. People from neighboring towns began to visit, eager to see the magical sun pictures that Joseph and Isidore had created. They marveled at the detail, the clarity, and the wonder of these first photographs. But Joseph wasn't satisfied just yet. He wanted to share this discovery with the world. He began writing letters to scientists, artists, and inventors, describing his process and encouraging them to try it for themselves. One of these letters reached Louis Daguerre, a fellow inventor in Paris, who was so intrigued by Joseph's work that he traveled to the village to meet him. When Louis arrived, he was astonished by what he saw. "Joseph, this is incredible," he exclaimed. "This could change the way we see the world forever." Joseph nodded, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Yes, Louis, but it's just the beginning. There's still so much more to learn, to refine. Together, we could make this process even better." And so with Louis's help, Joseph and Isidore continued to improve their invention. They experimented with different chemicals, different techniques, and different ways to make the images even more permanent. It wasn't long before the world began to take notice, and the art of photography, born from the humble dreams of a man in a small village, began to spread far and wide. Years later, as Joseph grew older, he would often sit with Isidore and look through the photographs they had created together. "Remember, my son," he would say with a smile, "all of this started with a simple idea and a little bit of light. Never be afraid to follow your dreams, no matter how impossible they may seem." And so, the story of the first successful photograph became a legend, passed down through generations. People marveled at how a man with a dream and his devoted son had changed the world forever. The images they created continued to inspire wonder and awe, a lasting reminder that with determination, creativity, and a little bit of magic, even the simplest of ideas can illuminate the world. The end.